everyone. Thank you so much for coming to workshop number 4. So today we're talking about personal statements, what they are, how to start thinking about them, and towards the end we'll spend around 15 minutes talking about how you can start brainstorming actual essay topics, depending on what colleges you're trying to apply to. So the UCs or different private universities. So then overview of today's presentation, we're doing introductions, Kahoot icebreaker, we'll do an overview, general strategies, like kind of do's and don'ts. We'll do the activity and then a closing survey. Some rules, you can only chat to the host. So if you have any questions at all, please send them either to me, Avdeep or Kamal, who will also introduce themselves in a second, so you'll know who they are. For future workshops, your Zoom username must match the name that you registered with. So my Zoom username has to be Arabi Hassan because that's the name I registered with, right? So this is just security protocol just so we know who's coming in. So yeah, please don't share the link with your friends. Just ask them to sign up. You can still participate even though you can't unmute yourself and there is no general chat. Please ask us questions. You can use reactions like the clap emoji, and we'll be doing Kahoot throughout the presentation. So that's another way to engage with each other. And of course, there's an activity towards the end where you get to share your answers. Okay, so a little bit of an introduction. So my name is Arabi. I graduated from Van Nuys High School in 2015. I went to Valley College afterwards and I transferred to UC Berkeley and graduated from Berkeley last year with a degree in sociology. And afterwards, I received a grant from Berkeley to run my own project. So I started the First Gen Empowerment Project, which is all about helping first generation and immigrant students succeed in life after high school and just kind of figure out what their options are. So we were based in Van Nuys High School initially, but now that school, due to the pandemic, in-person classes were shut down. So we decided to move all of our workshops online. And that's why we're here now over Zoom. So I know some of you are from other schools. So please keep sharing the word to your friends in your school and to other schools so we can get the word out about these workshops because they're really beneficial. And I'll be headed to Harvard Law in the fall. I will continue working on this project, but that's my next step is to law school. So I'll let Kamal and Avdeep introduce themselves as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Kamal and I graduated from Chenson High School in the Bay Area as part of the class of 2016. And this May I just graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a degree in neuroscience and nutrition science. And I will be attending the National Taiwan University for my master's in global health this fall. So a little bit about my background, I am a first generation college student. And for me, that meant not having anyone really lead me or walk me through the college application process. It made adjustment toward college very difficult. And I think I had a very negative adjustment in my first year. And now that's kind of why I'm here, because I think that all students should have access to the resources they need to succeed. And I believe first gen empowerment can be part of that process for you. Not just like getting into college, but also adapting to the first year of college. And that's why I'm here, and that's what I hope to continue to do, not just for this summer, but continuing on into the early part of my master's.
What's up, everybody? My name is Avdeep. I went to Impact Academy, which is a school in Hayward. We have a couple of people from Impact on the call. Welcome, so happy to see you. I went to Berkeley, graduated last year, which is where I met Arabi, and became a part of this really cool project. And I will be heading into the workforce. The Bridgespan Group is a consulting firm. So if you want to ask me about what consulting is, feel free to shoot over a question.
Yeah, so beyond the workshops that we offer, if you have any career questions to Kamal about, like nutritional science, about pre-med track, me about law school, and Avdeep about consulting, we are more than happy to talk to you about all of those pathways because they're different. And I think a lot of it you don't hear about when you're in high school because you might hear that like the only pathways are very traditional. Like you can be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, but there's so much more to it. And yeah, we want to share our experiences with you. Okay, so we're going to give you an overview of the essays and what they are and what admissions committees are looking for. What colleges look at generally is your GPA, your SAT and ACT scores. Well, they used to, now it's a little bit different because it's optional now. Your AP classes or any college classes that you've taken, the rigor of your classes, which means like, are you taking honors? Are you taking AP classes? What types of classes are you taking? As like relative to what is offered at your high school. So if you don't have a ton of school classes offered at your high school that are APs, and it's okay because your options were limited to begin with. They also look at your extracurricular activities, so how you spend your time outside of classes, so leadership, volunteering, internships, even helping your family or helping take care of community members. And then finally, personal insight essays, which are short essays that are supposed to be a reflection about you and your life and who you are as a person. So what are personal statements and why are they so important? It's a chance to show colleges who you are. You get to talk about your experiences, your strengths, your memories, abilities, inspirations, ambitions. There's so many. It's a personal statement. The topic itself can be very wide-ranging, but the important part is it's about you and all the things that make you who you are. It's a chance to tell your story. So this is not an academic 5-paragraph essay. You're not citing external resources. You're not saying, according to this author, none of that. It's a narrative about your life. And because they're so short, you don't really have time to do anything other than talk about you. It also helps you show your identity and who you are beyond your grades and your scores and the classes that you've taken. So it's kind of similar to interviews. These essays help the colleges see who you are beyond your numbers. UCs don't do interviews and neither do the CSUs, but private universities sometimes will do interviews as well. It's a chance to advocate for yourself. So use your essays to talk about all the different things that have prepared you to succeed in college. Why do you belong in that college that you're applying to? That's a way for a personal statement is a way for you to answer that question.
So as folks know, there's different types of schools, and we went over these schools in our previous workshops. We're also been going over them again. So for the UCs, you have 4 essays. So these are 4 short essays. And when you apply for the UCs, they give you 8 different prompts that you can choose from. During this workshop, y'all are going to be introduced to them and even get the ability to walk through some of them. And then from these 4 prompts, you get to write, sometimes they're called personal inquiry questions, and each of the essays that you write is around 350 words max. And for the Common App and the Coalition for College, which is just another application for private schools, you choose 1 essay. And this essay is from a prompt from one, you write an essay from one of these 7 available prompts for you. And the word limit is 650 words. And for the Coalition for College, it's very similar. You choose one of the prompts from the 5 prompts provided to you, and you write an essay of 550 words. And just something to let y'all know is a lot of essays actually have supplemental essays. So for instance, I believe U Chicago has like their famous essay of, here's a box, write anything you want in this box, draw on this box, write code in this box, do whatever you want into this box, but let this box kind of tell us more about you. And so that's just an example of what like an additional essay can look like from university. And some universities would be like, well, tell us if you were here today, what would your day be like? So a lot of these essays, some are supposed to be kind of fun. Some of them are supposed to be a way for you to get to know the school more. They're supposed to be kind of an open invitation for imagination. And I think that's the way that I approach a lot of the essays. And then it becomes less of like, oh my God, it's a supplemental essay, but like oh, this is the way for me to get to know the school better. And for the CSUs do not have essays. So that's also another reason why you should be applying for them, especially if you qualify for fee waivers, because essentially all you do is you submit an application without any essays. Yeah.
Okay, and to clarify about the Common App and Coalition for College, these are like applications that you use to apply to other private universities. It's like a, think of it as like a website where you get to apply to all of the private universities that you want, but they themselves will have their own essays, right? So you either use Common App or Coalition for College. You don't have to use both of them. So let's say you were using the Common App, they will make you write 1 essay that goes to every single private university you're applying to. So if you're applying to, let's say, Stanford, Occidental, and USC, all 3 of them will read that 1 essay through the Common App, but then they will each also have their own essays that you have to write that are separate, and only USC, Stanford, and Occidental will see their individual essays. I hope that makes sense. If you need more clarification, let us know. The UCs are not like that because there's 4 essays that you have to write for the UCs, and all of the UCs that you apply to will read the same 4 essays. So never ever say something like, I want to go to UC Irvine because all of the other UCs you apply to will also read that essay and be like, oh, this person doesn't actually want to come to our UC. They want to go to Irvine. So don't do that. So the The setup is a little bit different, but the essays are very similar, and we'll go over them so you'll see what I mean. For the CSUs, there are no general essays, but there's a program called the EOP, which is for low income, underrepresented, and first generation students. And it just gives you a lot of advising and mentorship once you get to the CSU. I highly recommend that you apply to it. It's not that bad. And those have some short essays that you have to apply, or you have to write. So there's a lot of prompts. So what I'm gonna do is just say them out loud really quickly. I'm not gonna stop to like explain any of them. And the idea is to just help you see that they exist and they're all very similar. So for the UCs, number one, describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or contributed to group efforts over time. Number two, every person has a creative side and it can be expressed in many ways. Problem solving, original innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Describe how you express your creative side. Number three, what would you say is your greatest talent or skill? How have you developed and demonstrated that talent over time? Number four, describe how you have taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or worked to overcome an educational barrier that you have faced. Number five, describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? Number six, think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside or outside of the classroom. Number seven, what have you done to make your school or your community a better place? And number eight, beyond what has already been shared in this application, what do you believe makes you stand out as a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? Those are the 8 UC prompts. You pick 4 of them and you write mini essays. 350 words is nothing. That's like 2 paragraphs, okay? So you really have to be super concise. I'll let Kamal explain the CommonApp prompts.
So for the Common App, these essays are going to be a little bit longer, and you only submit one of these for a common application. So again, just to reiterate, you submit this one essay in the common application, and each time you apply to a different school, this essay gets sent to them. And these are for the schools within the Common App. The UCs have a different process, and the CSUs have a different process. So the first prompt: some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent so meaningful they believe the application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, please share your story. Prompt 2. The lessons we take from our obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? Prompt 3. Reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea. What prompted your thinking? What was the outcome? Prompt 4. Describe a problem you solved or a problem you'd like to solve. It can be an intellectual challenge, a research query, an ethical dilemma, anything of personal importance, no matter the scale. Explain its significance to you and what steps you took or could have taken to identify a solution. Prompt 5. Discuss an accomplishment, event, realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. Prompt 6, describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging it makes you lose track of all of time, or lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? Prompt number 7, share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that sponsored a different prompt, or one of your own design. That's a really loose prompt. And so that just goes to show what these essays are supposed to be and how there's never one essay that fits you, and definitely go for the one that fits what you want to do. Coalition for College prompts. Tell a story from your life describing experience that either demonstrates your character or helps to shape it. Prompt 2. Describe a time when you made a meaningful contribution to others in which the greater good was your focus. Discuss the challenges and rewards of making a contribution. Prompt 3. Has there been a time when you've had a long cherished or accepted belief challenged? How did you respond? How did the challenge affect your beliefs? Prompt 4. What is the hardest part of being a student now? What's the best part? What advice would you give to a younger sibling or friend, assuming they would listen to you? Prompt 7, submit an essay on a topic of your choice.
Okay, so as you can see, as we were reading about Lara, I hope you saw some similar threads through all of them, and and the general threads are there about leadership, about helping other people, helping your community, about something about you, like what your academic interests are, things like that. So you can definitely write some general essays and use them for different prompts. For different universities. So how do you pick your prompts? How do you know what you actually want to write about? So ask yourself two main questions. What do I want the colleges to know about me? Right? Like, what are my qualities? What are the things that I've done that I really like? It would not make sense for them to review my application without them knowing these things about me. So ask yourself that. And the second question is, which prompts allow me to highlight those aspects of my life? So now that you know, like, we're going to do this activity so it'll make more sense. But the things that you want the colleges to know about you, how can you highlight them using the prompts that they have given you? Those are the two questions to ask yourself as you're figuring out what prompts you want to go with. This is a very general formula for how to write an essay. You might remember from your English classes where the teachers would give you like a 5-paragraph essay formula where you put evidence in between, like the body paragraphs and stuff like that, right? Remember that? So we're going to do this, but for a personal essay. So there's 4 parts to your general formula. Number 1, describe an experience, identity, or activity, right? Something that you have done, something that makes you who you are, or something that like has happened to you. Number 2, how has that like what happened to you, number 1, affected you or your activities? So whatever you talk about in number 1, how has it affected you? So kind of reflect on that. Number 3, overall reflection of how that these number 1 and 2 have shaped you into X, Y, and Z, and fill that in. It could be that it has shaped you into a leader, someone who's compassionate, resilient, all of these things. And then number 4 is optional, but it helps with some essays. Discuss future goals or aspirations. I'm going to give you an example using like an essay that I wrote to kind of illustrate these 4 parts to the formula. I have 3 here because I think number 3 will also incorporate number 4. So number 1, my experiences as an immigrant. That's the identifier that I'm going to write my essay about. The fact that I was born in another country and how like I came to the US when I was 10 years old, like that whole story, right? So my experience as an immigrant, number 2, has shaped me into a resilient leader who is passionate about empowering and advocating for other immigrants. So in this part, I would talk about the challenges I face as a first-generation immigrant, including educational barriers, right? Like not being able to afford college, so like having to go through the process of applying for scholarships, things like that. Number 2, I would show how I became involved in my community because I realized how tough it's so tough to be an immigrant in this country, especially when we don't have the resources. So that has shaped my passion for helping my community and helping other immigrants. So I would talk about that in number 2. And finally, number 3, I would tie everything together to my passion and future goals. So my future goals, so if I were to write these essays now, I would say, I want to be a lawyer. I want to help other immigrant communities. And I have come this far in life. I know I want to be a lawyer because of everything I've learned about the immigration system coming so far. So this is where I would incorporate my future goals as a lawyer and like what my passions are. My passion is to help first generation and immigrant students and to help other communities. So that's sort of me applying the formula for my own personal essay. As you think about how to write your essay, this is something that you can incorporate. I just want to point out that this is just one way of like a million different formulas that you can use. It's something I came up for my own essays. Doesn't mean you have to follow this. You can follow whatever structure makes sense to you, as long as you're touching on at least 3 of these things. Okay, so general strategies, some do's and don'ts for what you should be doing or not doing. If you're describing a challenge, an obstacle, or setback that you've faced in life, like let's say you you experienced homelessness, or your family's low income, or something along the lines of that, right? Or even like you lost a student government election, right? That's like a setback, not necessarily a challenge or an obstacle, right? Like let's say these are some examples. So do write about how you've dealt with that problem. What did you learn from it? How did you manage that like obstacle or that challenge? And how did you, if you did overcome it, how did you overcome it? How has it shaped you as a person, and how has it made you into a stronger person, right? Don't just write about the problem and how hard it was. Don't sound like you're complaining or whining, and don't confuse a disappointment with an obstacle. By that, I mean, an obstacle or a challenge would be something like I mentioned earlier, like growing up in a low-income household, facing poverty, experiencing homelessness, things like that, right? These are serious challenges that really affect people's lives. A disappointment would be, for example, losing an election in your student government or getting a bad grade in a class, right? Those are things that, yeah, it sucks that it happened, and you can write about it to some extent, but you can't confuse them with like factors in people's lives that like truly genuinely affect their outcome in life, right? Like things like poverty and experiencing homelessness. So there's a layer here. There's a hierarchy of like what these obstacles and setbacks and challenges are. Reflect on them is basically my biggest do. How have you changed? What have you done as a result of facing these challenges and setbacks? All right, so show versus tell. Do use specific examples and stories to illustrate your point. Don't just write that you're a leader. If you're going to do that, use a specific example to show that you're a leader. Show who you are. Don't tell them who you are. Don't use vague words and descriptions. Don't use generalizations. Don't say something like I am a leader and then not explain what that means at all, right? Because that doesn't tell me anything. How are you a leader? What have you done to demonstrate your leadership? That's more meaningful. So let me give you an example of what I mean by this. This is an excerpt I found from the internet. So this is someone's real essay for one of the UC prompts, and I thought it was amazing. So UC prompt, this is the one that talks about describe the most significant challenge you've faced and the steps you have taken to overcome it. So this person wrote, this is just a paragraph from her essay. During 4 long months of separation, I filled the space that my mom previously dominated with learning. Everything and anything. I taught myself French through online programs, built websites, and began editing my drawings on Photoshop to sell them online. When my dad lost his 3rd job in 5 years, I learned to sew my own clothes and applied my new knowledge to costume design in the drama department. Okay, the red here is basically a general sentence. And then the green are specifics that this person provided to actually like paint a picture of what she meant, right? So I filled a space that my mom previously dominated with learning. How did she learn? She explained, she says, I taught myself French through online programs, I built websites, and I began editing my drawings. These are specific ways she learned after her mom left. When her dad lost his job, right, she dealt with that by sewing her own clothes, and then she applied her knowledge to costume design. These are very specific examples of a general statement, which is in red. This is what you should be trying to do. Not obviously this exactly, but when you make a statement that's kind of broad, you have to give specific examples, because these people who are reading these essays, they don't know who you are. They don't know what's going on in your life. You can't let them assume anything. You have to fill in the picture for them, fill in the blank for them. Okay, Kamal, do you want to talk about this?
So in terms of describing accomplishments or extracurricular activities, these are the do's and don'ts. So do discuss what did you learn from those experiences? What did you learn by being president of the organization, or maybe starting a club or whatnot? How has it shaped you as a person? Not just what you did, but also what did you take away from it? And how has it prepared you for your life, school, etc.? I think oftentimes we don't realize that that our extracurricular experiences can also be things that are very similar to jobs, where they give us a lot of skills and they also prepare us for getting like a real job or applying to school and whatnot. And these essays are a way for you to talk about that. But don't just list off your accomplishments, activities. I'm in high school, I did X, Y, or Z, I was part of these clubs, and make it a list, because your essays are not supposed to be a list. You will be able to list your extracurricular activities though. Yeah. So this is an example. So I'll read the example, then I'll discuss it. So more importantly, however, debate has taught me how to strategically choose my battles. When I prepare my arguments, I know that I can't use all of them in the end of a round. I have to focus. I've learned to maximize my strengths and not to conquer everything. Moreover, I've learned to be responsible with my own choices, with my choices. I apologize for the background noise. A wrong argument can mean losing if we can't defend well. Not only do I now know how to zoom in from a bigger picture, but I also know how to pick the right place to zoom in to zoom into so I can achieve my goal. So again, what this essay does is it is talking about the experience in debate club, but then it's focusing on what they've taken away from debate club, how they've learned to like prepare their arguments. But they're not just talking about arguments; they're talking about these lifelong skills that they have, their ability to focus and learn how to use their strengths and how not to conquer everything. And this speaks not just to this one club, this one movement, but this speaks to their life. And this talks about their character, what they're gonna, and who they are. And so that's kind of how the essays are, essentially structured from activities.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what you do. Like you, like UCs and the privates, they're not looking for people who started their own nonprofit. If you did that, that's great. What they're looking for is whatever that you did do. Did you learn from it? What did you learn from it? How were you able to be a better person or a different person because of the experience that you had with your leadership activities? Don't freak out if you don't have like super impressive experiences. Think about like, okay, what I have done, how can I tell them what it meant to me? How much it meant to me that I did this thing. So this person, like, if they wrote about debate, a lot of people do debate, but I can tell from this one paragraph that this person really appreciates debate, like the activity of debate, and they've learned a lot from joining their debate club. And that's what's impressive to me. Not that they joined debate, but they're able to reflect on it. That's what you're trying to do. Okay, other tips, Kamal?
So for other tips, do start off with a short story as a jumping point. This is actually more or less optional, but it's a great way to open up your essay. Be personal and express emotions. This isn't a formal essay. Be yourself and let your voice shine. Use each essay to discuss a different aspect of your identity. And so this is something I want to point out. Oftentimes it feels like you want to tell the same narrative all throughout your 4 essays for like the UC application, where you have 4 short essays that are capped at 350 words. But instead of doing that, make sure you're touching on different parts of your story or different moments of time throughout your 4 essays, because people want to know more about you. And you're going to find that there's actually very little space to talk about that. So you have to maximize and make sure you're not retelling the same story or the same part of the narrative. Don't use cliches like metaphors. Don't mention that you want to go to specific UC to read all the same essay. I would say the same thing for the Common App essay for private schools. Don't just say you want to go to Stanford, because you're going to be submitting the same Common App essay to a bunch of different universities. Don't plagiarize or let someone else write your essay. This is just a big no-no, and this is something that can get you into serious trouble, not just in this moment, but in any class you take at your university. Don't repeat topics. There isn't enough space. This is, again, going over the idea of don't just focus on one specific moment. Like, you can talk about debate in one essay, but then make sure you talk about maybe like other experiences in different essays. Because you want to provide people a holistic image of you. And don't talk extensively about other people. Remember, these essays are about you. They care about you. They're accepting you, and you want them to want you. It's not about just your parents. You can talk about your parents in your story, but the story isn't about them. It's not about them getting into college. It's about you. And so another thing about like essays is you have to get them reviewed. I can't remember the number of drafts I went through, and I can't remember how many times I completely restarted my essay when I was applying for college. But I'm really grateful that I did have people to review it. And I think the way to navigate that is essentially kind of have 3 people. And I would strongly argue for a smaller cap, like aim for 3 at like a maximum, because I do believe the more feedback you get, the more it might take away from the vision of your essay. Oftentimes there's a phrase like too many cooks ruin the pot. And I'll say the same thing for essays. If you have too many people pointing you to different directions, your essay won't seem like it has a narrative to it. So for the 3 different essays, for the 3 different reviewers, you should have your essay. Aim for the first one for someone who knows you very well, a friend or family member. Someone who doesn't, the second one should be someone who doesn't know you well. And these are folks who could point out the gaps of your essay. These are maybe like an advisor, or maybe someone else who's maybe another college student who reached out to you, or someone you met at a panel. Definitely just think about folks who don't know you but are willing to help. And the third one should be someone who can proofread your essay. So this can be an English teacher or someone who has experiences in writing, who's able to check your grammar and spelling. Don't be afraid to use like AI, like Grammarly, or a bunch of different other sites, because these sites can help find a lot of different errors.
All right, so we've got to the activity portion, which I've dedicated around 15 minutes for. So basically what we'll be doing today is picking your topics for college, for your essay, sorry. So there's 2 steps. Step number 1, I have set up these 3 questions for you. You're going to pick one of them and you're going to brainstorm. So the 3 questions are, what aspects of your identity or life affect you the most? So some examples of this would be gender, sexual orientation, your ethnicity, religion, citizenship status, mental health, being differently abled, other factors that aren't an identity, like you don't identify it, but it's something that you experience, being in the foster care system, growing up in a single parent household, being in the juvenile justice system, having a parent who went to prison at some point, right? Like growing up with that experience, experiencing homelessness, like these big things that really affect your life. Those are all count for number 1. Okay, number 2. That's just something like, so you pick one of these. So number 2 would be list 3 things you like about yourself. So these are personality traits that you want to highlight in your essays. Use strong and meaningful words. Please don't write that one of your words should not be nice. I think I'm a nice person, but I also think there's a lot of different ways to describe me being nice. You can say empathetic, compassionate, passionate, always there for other people, reliable, right? Like there are different ways to describe a person who is nice without using the word nice. So challenge yourself to use more strong and meaningful words. And then number 3, list 3 things that you're actively passionate about. So these could include social issues, helping your community, helping other people, art, dance, cooking, writing, photography, design, anything counts. Your passions make for powerful essays. Most of the essays that I've written, at least now that I'm like for law school, which have very similar personal statements, like requirements, they're a little bit longer. Most of my essays have been about my passion. So like I wrote about the First Gen Empowerment Project and how I created this project because I realized there were so many problems in public schools, right? That's something I'm passionate about. I wrote about it, and then I talked like about how I have taken action to turn my passion into an actual project. So that's what you're trying to do. Talk about something that you love and what you've done to kind of turn that into reality. So these are your 3 questions. And then step number 2 is, based on the topics that you brainstormed using questions 1, 2, or 3, figure out which prompts would best allow you to highlight those topics. So remember, each essay should highlight a different aspect of your life. You can do this later when, like after this workshop is over, but I really want you to focus on these questions and just brainstorming them. And we will do breakout sessions and like kind of be able to share these topics with each other, because I think it's important that you have good topics that you feel really good about. And afterwards, you can find which essays would actually fit those topics. Here's some more resources. When I post this presentation on the website, you will be able to click on them. So please go through and read more about these resources. We have a survey, tinyurl.com/firstgensummer. Please take the survey. And our next workshop is on Friday. There's 2 of them. There's one on scholarships, so how to apply for scholarships, and the other one is financial aid once you're in college. That one will be a little bit shorter. It's just like once you get to whatever university you're going to, how do you start finding scholarships? So they're like back to back. I hope you attend both of them, but if not, my personal recommendation is a scholarships workshop. Please take the survey. Thank you all so much for coming. Let us know if this was helpful for you and if we can do anything else to help you. Thank you.